The Sunday on-press pass, it only took 4 days, but we now have a winner, Joe Biden becoming president-elect on Saturday. Biden addressed a deeply divided nation last night, and mounting legal challenges are already calling the integrity of the election into question. President Trump is claiming fraud and trying to halt the count in some key states, while Republicans push back, saying to let every vote be counted. A lot happening this weekend, so joining us to weigh in on that and much more is Congressman Mike Kelly from Pennsylvania. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, good Sunday morning to you, Lindsay. Good to be with you.
Thank you for taking the time. You know, it just does not look like the president will concede, saying on Twitter that he won this election by, quote, a lot. Do you believe that he needs to accept the outcome of this election at this point and commit to a peaceful transfer of power, in your opinion?
Well, you know, so there was a declaration yesterday, but it's by the networks. It hasn't been certified yet. I think there's a vast difference between what we're hearing and what actually takes place in America. So I would think for us to just kind of wait a little bit here. We have a lot of irregularities that people are looking at, and it seems statistically impossible for someone to come from behind votes that Joe Biden got. People said that's absolutely impossible. That couldn't happen. It's just statistically impossible for that to happen. Now the question comes into effect. Well, look, during this pandemic, there's been a huge loss of confidence and faith in our system right now. It just is.
Okay,
so half the country. Well, wait, let me finish.
Okay.
Half the country doesn't believe this took place. That's a huge problem.
Now, you issued a statement on Saturday to us saying in part that the Trump campaign is trying to fight this in court, trying to, determine the integrity of the vote in multiple states right now. Do you believe that the president is undermining the process? Do you think this is creating a dangerous atmosphere? Or do you believe that these lawsuits have validity and they won't get tossed out of court, in particular the one that is in Pennsylvania right now?
Well, I think the president is following exactly what he should follow. There's a rule of law, and he does have the ability, and he does have the right to contest some of these very slim margin states when you look at all the irregularities that took place. I'm kind of puzzled how people look at this and say that he doesn't have the right to question this. He's not saying anything other than we will go through everything we can go through, it being the campaign, the Trump campaign, and I think the American people deserve that to take place. Why would we not want to see that, especially when there's so many questions right now about the validity and the fact that were these lawful votes that were counted? Whenever governors extend the time to count votes, whenever we're not, the time stamp on the envelope didn't matter. Didn't even have to have matching signatures. All of these things took place, and it's like you got to sit back and say, wait, this isn't at all what we think America is supposed to be. So I think the president should exhaust whatever he has to exhaust to make sure. Remember last spring with Hillary Clinton told Joe Biden, whatever you do, if it's a close race, don't you dare concede. We will work on this and work on it until we win. So I think people are disregarding the advice that Joe Biden got in the spring and criticizing President Trump for it was his right to contest what looks like, in some cases, very irregular vote tallies.
Now, do you have any evidence or proof of any issues in your portion of Pennsylvania or where maybe something took place in Pennsylvania at this point? Do you have anything that you can point to that's solid evidence?
I think we have a lot of evidence, but it's by witnesses that would have to be heard. So whenever people ask you, is it solid evidence, the question is, if you have witnesses that are willing to come forward and testify, is it circumstantial or can you prove it? It's proof once it gets heard and is in the courts. That's the full point here. Why wouldn't we want to know for sure? Why are we saying, oh, these are just false claims? I don't believe they're false claims, and in some cases, it's very apparent to almost most clear-thinking people look at this last election that just happened on November the 3rd, and it's kind of a mystery to them. And it's really, it needs to be worked out. We need to be able to see it. We need to have with confidence if there's going to be a transfer of power, if there's going to be a transfer of the presidency. Shouldn't we really know what happened on November the 3rd and the days following it, where votes kept taking place? We weren't allowed to go in to polling places, or where votes were being counted in election bureaus. Republicans weren't allowed to witness. And so all these things draw into question, then, is it really a fair and equal election? And was every vote unlawfully casted vote?
Okay. One of the things that I wanted to ask you, Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, he came out yesterday saying that he will file a lawsuit Monday in Pennsylvania to challenge the conduct of election officials in your home state. He is making allegations of unfounded voter fraud, saying that Trump and the campaign was, quote, deprived of the ability to watch those ballots being processed, something that you just mentioned. But do you believe that this case is going to get taken up? Because we saw one in Michigan that tossed out the Trump campaign filing these all over different battleground states right now that they have questions in. Do you think this is even going to be able to move forward?
A good question. I think we let the process go forward, and we'll see how it plays out. Decisions have to be made, and the courts will make those decisions at the end of the day on this. But I think every citizen has the right to at least file a complaint, file a suit, and then whether it gets heard or not is up to the courts.
Okay, and you are backing the president in that lawsuit officially, you would say?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. As I said earlier, it's statistically impossible for the numbers that changed overnight, and the way the voting took place, the way the counting of the votes took place. Anybody who's not looking at that objectively, I think it's maybe so far to one side that they don't want to look at the probability of what had happened. Too many irregularities, Lindsay, just way off the charts with this election.
I know that you feel this way, but if you move forward, let's say Trump does leave office, do you think that the GOP would hope that he would find an honorable way to leave and transition the power if that does happen? Is that something that your party is looking at the same time?
You know what? I'm a little bit surprised at the idea that somehow President Trump wouldn't want to transition and do it in a way that people would look at across America and say, well, he did what he could, and this was the right process. I don't know why a president who's been under fire since the day he got inaugurated and questioned. You talk about people not accepting the results of an election. Look what happened in 2016 all the way up to right now by the people on the Democrat side of the aisle. So I find it unusual that people would now say, well, Trump needs to just concede. We need to move on, and we need to see this work itself out. But you know what? It needs to be looked at long and hard, and we need to make sure that every lawful vote, legitimate vote, actually got counted, and that we weren't gamed as a country. This one has. There's no saying. If it waddles like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. This is more than a duck. This is unbelievable what's taking place right in front of our eyes. I guess the rest of the world must look at us and say, the greatest country in the world doesn't know how to run an election? Come on.
What are the voters telling you? What are you hearing from some of the Trump supporters and your own supporters right now?
They're furious. They're furious. It's obvious to them what's happened, and they question the validity of the results right now. They're looking at things that took place that are so irregular. But the one thing this has brought about to the American people, the greatest victim, and this is not going to be President Trump, it's going to be the system that we use, our electoral system. People have lost faith and trust in that system. And to me, that is the greatest loss of all on November the 3rd and coming forward. It has been unbelievable that clocks and calendars don't seem to matter anymore, and especially in states where Democrat-led states, Democrat governors, and Democrat secretaries of state made incredible changes in the way we normally vote, in the accepted way we vote. Listen, Lindsay, there's a voting day. It was November the 3rd. There's clocks and there's calendars. To take it and extend it and do what? And then stop in the middle of the night and then wait till the next morning to take up the count again? This is just smacks up so much voter fraud that I think we need to get to an answer. Not about President Trump, by the way. This is about our American system of electing people. And if somebody wants to make it isolate and say, no, this is just about Trump, no, it's not. This is a president who's questioning what happened on November the 3rd and the days past that, and number of votes that showed up, no postmarks, no countervail, no signatures that had to match up. Lindsay, really? And we're not allowed to have people come in and view what was taking place at where we were counting the votes? And somebody says, whoa, that's okay, that's the way it works. That's not the way it works. And I'm going to repeat myself. The greatest victim this year in this electoral cycle is the system that we use. The loss of faith and trust in this system is something that is at the top of the list. It's not about President Trump. It's about a system that looks like it was really poised for fraud, and it doesn't leave a good taste in anybody's mouth of what's happening right now.
Okay, let's move on real quick. Stimulus talks. The Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says that a stimulus bill is a top priority when the Senate gets back into session. Are both sides of the aisle actually going to be able to have this handled by the end of the year? Do you anticipate another round of possible stimulus checks for voters and regular Americans?
Yeah, I would like to see something happen on another CARES package, as long as, whether we're devoting the hardworking American taxpayer dollars to things that are absolutely the result of this COVID, and what's hurt businesses and hurt individuals. I think all of us want to do that. Now, the question is, though, in a lame duck session, will that get done? And I don't have a great deal of faith with what's the mood of the country right now that could happen. However, I would say this. I don't care whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. You represent American citizens. If we need to have another stimulus program, if we need to have the CARES package extended, if we need to do things to help people out that are in dire circumstances, we need to do that. We got to put politics aside in this and just work on good policy for the people we represent. It doesn't matter to me if they're a Republican or a Democrat. If they're hurting, we have the assets, we need to take care of them right away.
All right. Well, I really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much, Congressman. And we will check back with you maybe if we hear more about developments on the stimulus. I really appreciate your time.